Welcome to the Anglican Flaneurs. It's a Tuesday afternoon in the City of London, and it's not warm and sunny. It's rather windy and it's very wet. And on this very windswept Tuesday afternoon, I'm going to attempt to walk through some of the gardens in the City of London, and let's see where we end up. At this moment in time, like most of my life, I've no idea really what I'm doing, so let's see where the spirit of London takes us. Now we've come to this little gem just off Cannon Street. I used to work near here. I've always loved this place. I guess a lot of people walk past and may not have ever seen it, but it's the garden of St Swithin's Church. We mentioned St Swithin's Church in a video a little while ago while we were walking around Cannon Street. Amongst those buried here was Catherine Glendoyle, daughter of Welsh hero Owen Glendoyle. Needless to say that I probably offended every Welsh speaking viewer of the vlogs, if there are any, with my pronunciation. I just love, as you may have already guessed, these little church gardens nestled in amongst all the high-rise office buildings that we now see in the city. There's lots of different websites out there that cater if you need information about them. Two in particular that I've mentioned before, Ian Visits and Metro Girl. I've tried to come here before to film, but it was not too easy. There was lots of people milling around and there was lots of rubbish. But today, because the weather's so bad, no one's ventured out of their offices. They're all sitting back in the office looking at their laptops and PCs and drinking coffee. And there's only a few of us that are stupid enough to come and put up with this weather. But the poor weather does mean that we've got the garden to ourselves, and that's really good. I just love rainy, wet days in the City of London. And now we can see the memorial to Catherine, additionally dedicated to the suffering of all women and children in war. I won't try and pronounce the surname again. I must say it's a beautifully maintained garden, so top marks to those people who look after it. I made my way up Swithin's Lane and did a left turn at the back of Mansion House, and I made my way to the garden of St Stephen, Walbrook. I featured this church before in a video I did earlier this year, so I won't go on too much about the church. Let's have a look at the garden. The very smart building that we see before us is 37A Walbrook. I featured it just a few weeks ago in a short, and it's the residence of the Walbrook Club, a very high-end, elite City of London club for top achieving professionals. So that discounts me. And that is definitely one club I would not fit well into. There are several famous people buried here. One in particular, Sir Rowland Hill, styled as the first Protestant Lord Mayor of London and publisher of the Geneva Bible. Sadly, I can't make out many of the inscriptions on some of these tombstones. Another famous person buried here is Elizabeth Jekyll, who was an English Civil War diarist. I'm on the same level as the people on the right hand side in an office block. I think they're having their lunch and I'm getting lots of strange looks. Tall, weird man filming tombstones in a City of London church garden. The church is particularly notable for the fact that the rector, Reverend Chad Varah, founded the Samaritans, initially with just one old phone in the church to accept calls. Now let's talk a little about this wonderful person. He became rector of the church here in 1953 taking up an offer from the grocer's company. Chad began to understand the problems facing the suicidal when he was taking a funeral in 1935, his first church service, for a 14-year-old girl who had taken her own life because she had begun to menstruate and feared that she had a sexually transmitted disease. Chad vowed to help people who were contemplating suicide, and to this end he founded the Samaritans in 1953 in the crypt of this church, with the stated aim that it would be an organisation to befriend the suicidal and despairing. The phone line, MAN 9000 for Mansion House, received its first call on the 2nd of November 1953, and the number of calls increased substantially after publicity in the Daily Herald on the 7th of December 1953. Chad was director of the Central London branch of Samaritans until 1974 and president from 1974 to 1986. He was the founder chairman of Befrienders Worldwide, basically Samaritans International, from 1974 to 1983, and then is president from 83 to 86. Though it must be stated that Chad became disillusioned with the Samaritans organisation, he announced in 2004 that it's no longer what I founded. I founded an organisation to offer help to suicidal or equally desperate people. The last elected chairman rebranded the organisation. It was no longer to be an emergency service, it was to be an emotional support for the whole bloody population, whether they wanted it or not. Chad was even surprised by Eamon Andrews for a programme of This Is Your Life in 1961, and he eventually died 4 days before his 96th birthday, being survived by 4 of his children. There is so much more we could say about this wonderful and remarkable man, and I'll leave the discussions about Chad with these last snippets of information. He was appointed an OBE in 1969, Companion of Honour in 2000, and in 2012 3 items of rolling stock in Britain were named Chad Varah. Elsie Ann Palumo, with her husband and with Chad, were instrumental in a lot of the wood building work done in this church post World War II. And this is the memorial to Lanning Roper, who was an American landscape architect and writer who studied and lived in England. Roper was commissioned by Lord Peter Palumo to undertake design and planting advice for the churchyard at St Stephen, Walbrook from 1975 to 1982. And we'll leave the garden of St Stephen, Walbrook with this wonderful City of London plaque to the wonderful Chad Varah, rector from 1953 until 2003. I turned around from the garden and I'm looking towards the side of Mansion House and thinking about what to do next. Somehow and very randomly I've made my way onto Queen Victoria Street and we've come to a garden, Stuff Lane Garden, that I never knew existed, just behind St Nick's Church, and we're very close to St Paul's as well. Just a quick little bit of information about the church. I'm going to come back here, so I'm not going to overdo it. The earliest reference to the church is in a letter of Pope Lucius II in 1144 to 45, and the church is named after St Nicholas of Myra, patron saint of fishermen, who is apt as we are sat next to the original fish market. The great London historian John Stowe records that during the reign of Elizabeth I, a lead and stone cistern fed by the Thames was set up against the north wall of the church for the care and commodity of the fishmongers in and about Old Fish Street. The park replaces another park for cars that sat next to the 1950s era office block Scandinavian house, and it used to have a plot of unappealing grass on the top as an excuse for a public park. And again, thanks to Ian Visits for the information about this park. Between 2015 and 18, the old office was demolished, and where there had been an entrance to a car park, instead there was a delightful pocket park designed by Tom Stewart Smith that we see before us. Let's walk around this garden for a few moments and let's enjoy the peace and quiet and beauty. Though it's not really quiet, the wind is really getting up now, so it's making quite a racket. And very soon we'll see a sculpture of Icarus by Michael Ayrton that used to be on the old lawn on top of the car park that has now been relocated to the centre of the garden. We've now made our way out of the garden into Old Change for no other reason than you get great views of St Paul's here. Now, Old Change was a street in the City of London connecting Cheapside to Knight Ridder Street. The street was originally known as Old Exchange. It was named after a building constructed in the 13th century coining bullion, which is commemorated by a plaque in the gardens of St Paul's. And finally, Old Change was destroyed during World War II. A replacement street, New Change, was built slightly to the east of this following the war. And now we've come out to Old Fish Street Hill, one of the best views in the City of London. There's a possibility that it may originally have been called Bagard's Lane, but was certainly known as Fish Street Hill by Tudor times. It seemed to gain the name of Old, as in Old Fish Street, sometime in the 17th or 18th century, as it is marked as such in the Horde map of 1799. We've now made our way further down Queen Victoria Street by Peters Hill, and we're looking over the Millennium Bridge towards the South Bank and Tate Modern. To our right hand side we can see the City of London School that we've mentioned in previous vlogs. It was previously sited at Milk Street and then on the embankment. And on the left hand side we can see the international headquarters of the Salvation Army. Let's look into the information about the Sally Army, its history. The Christian Mission Headquarter in Whitechapel Road became the Army's first international headquarters in 1880. However, the founders soon decided that a move into the City of London would be beneficial, and in 1881 the headquarters was moved to 101 Queen Victoria Street. This present building was opened by Princess Royal on the 9th of November 2004. We're now moving further along Queen Victoria Street in the direction of the old Banyard Castle and Blackfriars Station. We've now made it to the Church of St Benet's Paul's Wharf, and this is a Welsh Anglican church, so quite a few Welsh connections in today's vlog. The church here can trace its history back to 1111, when a church was built on the site and dedicated to St Benedict's. This church is like no other church I know in the City of London, but I can't really articulate why. Over time, the name became St Benedict's Paul's Wharf after the Hythe, where the church was located. And we're just above Upper Thames Street, so you've got quite good views over to the South Bank, and you can see the Pier Building at 1 Blackfriars over towards the West End, further on from Blackfriars Bridge, and you can swing around and look to the eastern part of the City of London. The current church was designed by Sir Christopher Wren, and it is one of only 4 churches in the City of London to escape damage during the World War II. Now we're on White Lion Hill and we're looking at the old Banyard Castle site. So that's it from the Anglian Flaneurs. I've got to get back to work and I've run out of things to say. I hope you've enjoyed this little trip around church gardens and other notable buildings in the City of London.